Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let's start the session. My name is Arno Thyssen. I'm Director of European Business Summits, which is a platform in Brussels. Is it working, yes? No, okay. I believe I forgot to mention you need to wear this headset to hear what I'm saying. So please all wear your headsets because it's a no sound room. Yeah. Is it working? Yes. Does everybody have a headset? It's absolutely essential if you want to participate in this conversation from on the stage, but also in the room. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this session. My name is Arno Thyssen. I'm Director of European Business Summit, which is a platform active in Brussels and promoting high-level dialogue with decision makers, public sector, the private sector. And some of you may have heard recently that we created in Brussels EU-Ukraine Business Summit, which served as a preparation for this, also for this conference today, and thanks to the support of Commissioner Kos, of the Commissioner in general, but also from Italy, it has quickly become an important platform in Brussels. And also another note on Brussels, I'm happy to announce that we launch in October a Brussels-Ukraine House, which I believe it's symbolically a statement, of course, but it's also a way to continue the dialogue on a more permanent basis of what we initiated during the summits. So welcome to this session on the EU reforms dimension, as I believe this is the first session in a series of 7, so let's keep it relatively general. And on that point, let me remind that the accession process is a hybrid one. On one side, we have an administrative discussion, so a technical negotiation between the Commission and the candidate country, following a merit-based approach. But on the other side, it's a very political process. And every member state needs to approve each step forward. And therefore, I'm very pleased to have on stage representative of this different perspective, different stakeholders. So we have the European Commission represented, Commissioner Kos for enlargement, welcome. On Ukraine side, we have Deputy Prime Minister Stefanishina joining us, Mr. Kornienko, first Deputy Chairman of the Ukrainian Parliament. And we have quite an impressive delegation also representative from the Council of the European Union, Mr. Foti, Minister of European Affairs of Italy, our host today. Welcome. We have Madame Rosenkrantz joining in a few seconds from Sweden. Mr. Boudris will join as well. We have Mr. Laurent Saint-Martin, Ministre Délégué Foreign Trade of France. And we have also Madame Tsoyu, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania. I hope I didn't forget anyone. Voilà. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. So with your permission, I would like to structure the conversation in 3 steps. So first, where do we stand with the process as such to make it understandable for everyone in the room? What is the status? What kind of progress we have made? But let's also face reality. There are some obstacles, there are some headwinds, and so it is important also to look at it and to see how we can move further. And precisely on that note, and that the second step in the conversation, I would like to enlarge a bit the perspective and to look at the positive dimension of this accession process, in the sense how Ukraine's accession could facilitate the way it is understood in the population. So to have also concrete examples of this element. And then third, I will give the floor also to Mr. Kornienko to understand better how the institutional architecture is adapted in Ukraine to get aligned with the process. We do have quite an agenda for 75 minutes, so let's not waste time. As we are in Rome, let's give the honors also to our host, Minister Foti. I invite you to take the floor to share some opening remarks.
Buongiorno a tutti, è con grande piacere che saluto gli amici che parteciperanno a questo nostro dibattito. È una conferenza importante, ha avuto già questa mattina un grande riscontro. Io penso di poter partire dalla dichiarazione che faceva questa mattina la commissaria von der Leyen, quando ha detto che la Commissione è pronta ad aprire il primo cluster fondamentale per l'Ucraina. Ecco, sotto questo profilo noi sappiamo bene quali sono alcune delle difficoltà che ci possono essere ancora per un'apertura formale, ma l'indicazione che viene così forte, così autorevole, ci fa indubbiamente guardare all'ottimismo. Un ottimismo che nasce dal fatto che 4 giorni dopo circa essere stata invasa dalla Russia, l'Ucraina ha chiesto di poter partecipare alla Unione Europea e da lì è nata tutta quella sequenza di atti formali che hanno portato nel corso del tempo all'attribuzione di status di candidato, poi alla conferenza intergovernativa sull'Ucraina e quindi al pacchetto allargamento. Ecco, sotto questo profilo oggi è anche l'occasione, per quanto mi riguarda, di poter ribadire con forza la piena, grande vicinanza al popolo ucraino, alla sua classe dirigente, ad una nazione che è stata invasa dalla Russia. Perché sotto questo profilo non ci possono essere equivoci. Noi come italiani, noi come tutti come europei, non possiamo non essere a fianco dei nostri fratelli ucraini che si battono per la libertà. È indubbio che vi sono passaggi delicati che ci aspettano. Abbiamo un processo di riforme che Kiev sta portando avanti in un modo encomiabile, pur con tutte le difficoltà del caso, perché non è facile portare avanti delle riforme nel momento in cui si è a tutti gli effetti in guerra. È un processo sicuramente di riforme che deve trovare e trova una grande possibilità nella riforma del sistema giudiziario, perché un sistema giuridico trasparente ed efficiente è sicuramente un sistema giuridico che non soltanto avvantaggia l'Ucraina come nazione, ma soprattutto rende possibile due grandi realizzazioni. In primo luogo quello di attrarre investimenti esteri e conseguentemente in secondo luogo la possibilità concreta di promuovere una crescita economica che pure è indispensabile in questo clima. Vi è la possibilità e quindi la necessità di andare avanti sulle riforme in materia di investimenti pubblici, che sono essenziali per garantire il coinvolgimento effettivo delle imprese nell'opera di ricostruzione, perché anche sotto questo profilo questa conferenza è una conferenza che guarda avanti, guarda alla ricostruzione dell'Ucraina e già oggi in tutti gli interventi che si sono succeduti questa mattina penso che tutti abbiano potuto toccare con mano la convinzione che vi è al riguardo. L'Italia, tra l'altro, ha contribuito sotto questo profilo con programmi di formazione specializzata per i pubblici ministeri ucraini. L'Unione Europea ha dato il suo contributo per quanto riguarda il gemellaggio amministrativo, twinning, e l'assistenza tecnica, il TAIEX. Della questione ucraina e dell'adesione alla UE ero appena stato nominato ministro, ho avuto l'onore di poterne parlare con il commissario Kos e ne abbiamo parlato proprio con quella convinzione che ci anima oggi e che anima oggi il nostro confronto e il nostro dibattito. Aggiungo anche che sotto il profilo strettamente economico è importante prevedere un sostegno alle piccole e medie imprese e sotto questo profilo mi pare di poter dire che l'Italia, assieme ad altri paesi, ma sicuramente è un capofila nel poter fornire utili indicazioni per addivenire ad una ricostruzione che si basi anche sotto il profilo economico sull'alta specializzazione delle piccole imprese e sulla solida competenza tecnico-manifatturiera. Vi è poi la ricostruzione del sistema dei trasporti. Sotto questo profilo appare indispensabile richiamare l'opportunità di dare vita ad un nuovo sistema logistico, moderno, sicuro, resiliente, interconnesso con i mercati e le reti dell'Unione Europea. Quest'oggi vi è stata una dichiarazione che voglio citare dell'ambasciata russa a Roma che mi pare oltremodo significativa. Si dice che dietro alla conferenza si nasconde una logica cinica e menzognera che viene portata avanti dagli attuali leader dei paesi occidentali, Italia compresa. Ecco, posso tranquillamente dire a fronte di un giudizio così sprezzante, a un giudizio che non ha alcuna corrispondenza nella realtà dei fatti, che questa è una delle tante modalità di disinformazione che la Russia utilizza ogni giorno per nascondere quelle che sono state vicende sicuramente da condannare e che la vedono protagonista a partire dall'invasione dell'Ucraina. Ecco perché l'allargamento dell'Unione Europea, l'allargamento all'Ucraina, alla Moldova, ma anche ai Balcani occidentali, ha una rilevanza geostrategica, perché è un investimento in pace, prosperità e stabilità. Sotto questo profilo penso che tutti possiamo convenire che se una vecchia canzone diceva "It's a long way tutti i pareri", oggi possiamo dire che non è così lunga la strada perché l'Ucraina, perché la Moldova, perché tutta quella comunità che si riconosce nei Balcani occidentali possa riunirsi all'Europa, possa riunirsi all'Unione Europea per dar vita a quell'Europa completa che noi riteniamo sia indispensabile soprattutto per quanto riguarda il suo futuro e la sua posizione in un mondo che cambia. Grazie e buon lavoro a tutti.
Thank you so much, Minister for your positive words, plenty of determination, also looking at the future. I would like to move to Commissioner Kos and the other speakers and ask simple questions. How do you see the state of play in Ukraine relation and the accession process, and especially looking also at the obstacles and some headwinds that we can see evolving in Europe? Commissioner.
Thank you. I don't know what was your criterion, how do we sit here, but usually, we sit now exactly how the process is running. So Olga and myself, we are negotiating what has to be done. I'm pushing Olga very strong because there is a lot to be done, and Olga is pushing back that we should be quicker. What we agreed, then it goes to the reforms have to be done in the parliament in the Verkhovna Rada. So Alexander has to take care that all the reforms are adopted. Sometimes it goes smoothly, sometimes not that much. And once we agree and the screening processes are done and everything is done, then the member states are, and this is what you have said before, it is a technical process, partially. So there are negotiations. It is about the alignment of the legislation of the candidate country, in this case of Ukraine, with the European one. And then, of course, we need the decisions in the Council, and this is then the political process. And I have to say that because Olga is really pushing hard in a very positive sense, we have done until now the screening processes at the highest speed ever with any candidate country. So yes, Tommaso, you have said we are ready to open cluster 1. So now the Council is in the driving seat, and I hope that this will happen soon for Ukraine and Moldova. We have already proceeded to the Council screening reports for cluster 2 and 6. Altogether are 6. So we will be able to open all the clusters in this year. I will tell you an anecdote. When I was the first day the commissioner in the new commission, December the 1st last year, I was in Kiev, so I haven't seen my office yet. And we were talking with President Zelensky. Olga was there. And President Zelensky told me that they would love to open all the clusters this year. First, I didn't answer. I didn't want to be unpolite, but I would have to say no, it is not possible. So I was somehow diplomatically, I didn't answer. And then he said it again. I tried to avoid again, but then he said it for the 3rd time. And then I said, oh, yeah, but it's, I don't know, but we have to also close, not just open. But now, if he would be here, I would tell him, Mr. President, yes, we will open all the clusters this year, and once we will be, there will be open, then we just close. So it is really amazing. Olga, this is also because of you. It is really amazing, how Ukraine is successful in the accession process. While bombs are falling, while drones are flying, you are negotiating. We have Jessica with us from Sweden. Sweden was until now the fastest country in the whole accession process. But even you, being so much developed, you needed 3 years. So it's not the process you can do during the night. And what is also important for Ukraine, it's a lot of reforms, but we are also on the way integrating Ukrainian economy in our internal market already on the way. One very good news is that we will, from January next year, all the citizens of Ukraine will be included in roaming, so roam like at home. Now some of Ukrainians who are living in Europe have to pay huge costs, phoning, texting, messaging at home. So from January next year this will be better. Then we have green corridors and so on. So it is really a huge project what we do. Just one point what Tommaso was mentioning before. When we go through the process, we open the first cluster, which is fundamentals. Fundamentals because it is about judiciary system, it is about fighting the corruption, it is about setting up the institutions which are important that the country can function normally. Also, for instance, public procurement. We are here now at the investment, I call this investment conference, a reconstruction conference. Whatever we will do through the cluster one, we are setting the basis that the investors, once they will come to Ukraine, will be sure that their investments are safe. So it goes hand in hand. It is a lot of work to do. It is about the economy, and of course, it is also about the people. And the last point is, it is also about the attitude. You know, the will of the Ukrainian people to become a member of the EU, it's immense. My country, Slovenia, I remember we got independent in '91. It was such a special energy who helped us to do everything possible. I think, Olga, that your energy is even higher, so I really congratulate to you and to all of people of Ukraine for this really, really successful work.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Deputy Prime Minister Stefanishina, with what the Commissioner said, you will say yes, but are you satisfied with the speed at which the process is advancing? And also, what are the obstacles, you know, that you have also in Ukraine, in a country at war? I suppose you have some hurdles, of course, to manage.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Marta, and all of the European Commission and the team. I think it's a work on both ways, and to reach the point when member states have a word to say, there are like thousands people on both sides which had to do the work on a daily basis. In Ukraine, it's more than 3,000 people who are engaged in the accessions on a daily basis, from public administration, almost 200 people from the parliament. Thank you, Alexander, for inviting all these people to the accession process, expert community and think tanks, and 1,000 people in European Commission who are engaged into the accession process for Ukraine and Moldova. So it is a priority that we feel, and we understand that the momentum is there for the enlargement, that this is a geopolitical decision, and I think it's very important that it's beyond the procedures. The procedures are secondary. Of course, we have to stick to them, and we stick to the procedures, and everyone should have the equal access to the process. It should be merit-based. This is something which are unconditional principles of the of sticking to the Copenhagen criteria. But at the same time, this is the goal. This is the goal for European Commission. The European Commission has made an enlargement a key policy, a key geopolitical vector of its sovereignty, its strength. And I think we contribute to this goal as much as we can on the front line, first and foremost, on remaining a European and democratic state on the 4th year after the full-scale invasion, on an 11 years after the beginning of the annexation of Crimea, which started after the Revolution of Dignity, and also by making sure that we are helping the member states and European Commission not to lose the energy of enlargement by doing the job we have to do. And this is the good part of it. The second part is that when I'm back to Kiev, there are like so many tough discussions on the decisions which had to be taken. But I think the best thing ever I heard from my deputy, Alexander Banchuk, I don't know, he's here. He's a very smart guy, but Sasha, you're here. So he said a very simple thing today, that in 2019 we started to pitch some reforms related to integrity, reselection, relaunch of judiciary, full launch and functioning of the anti-corruption and judicial body. It just started to happen in 2019, and now we have it multiplied in many areas which go beyond this sector. And this was very complicated. This caused a massive discussion, but this was done. And also I remember the words I heard from my president back in 2022 after Ukraine has been granted a candidate status. He said to me that the best time for make every reform is now. And here we are. We have prioritized that the reform agenda will be totally oriented to Ukraine's accession to EU, which is important, which is not something that could be stopped, not something that should be halted by some individual players who think that they could manipulate the overall agenda. And I think if you would ask me if we could move faster, yes, we can, of course. If we think that merit base should be followed by the decisions, of course we do. If you would say, why are we so persistent? Why are we so tough? It's because we are naive. We are naive because we believe in this. We believe in this European dream, and we believe that if we will do everything right, things will work the way they should work. It's about justice to us. We are naive because we need that, because we know this is the dream of Ukrainian people. This is not just a process, a maps, a laws. It's a combination which is driven by the will of Ukrainian people. So we can move faster. We do not want only one thing, that the enlargement will become the burden of European Union. It might be such a huge success for all European Union, for all member states, for the Commission, and for all the enlargement countries. And if we have this thing in mind 24/7, this would definitely be a success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Konyenko, you're first deputy chairman of the Ukrainian parliament. Can we move faster? Do you agree with that? And do you have some priorities?
It's impossible to move faster than Olga, because it's our brilliant leader of this process, and I'm here only her, servant in this process. I'm member of national negotiation team, but we all time joke that Olga is my boss, in this case, in this space, and in this discussion. Thank you for this brilliant discussion, honorable ministers, colleagues. Dear Olga, dear Marta, for us very important to understand that working democracy, Ukraine is working democracy. I think we totally in this part of Copenhagen criteria, because we have all-time re-elected power, despite of war now, but all time we had it, and we will have in the future. Like working democracy, we should to stay and based on the willing of people. But what we can observe through population right now, 85% of Ukrainians supporting integration to EU. From this 85%, about two-thirds, it's about 50% in general, support very fast with any, maybe we ask them, okay, people, if it will be some difficulties for you and some restrictions for you, because we all understand that fast integration, it's all-time challenging for population, can be. Because it's all-time fast adoption of regulation, of directives, etc., etc. 50% of population said yes. We're able to receive these restrictions to be a member of EU right now, next 5 years, etc., etc. Of course, it's a geopolitical and civilization choice, but on the other hand, for our people who are working in some sectors, it's very understandable agenda about single market, about possibility to receive investment from the European country, from neighbors first of all, because we understand that our not easy but very important to solve exercises about agriculture, we can solve only with big neighbors. Only with Poland together, only with Romania together, only with Slovakia, with Hungary together. Because all time it worked on previous stages. We investigated how the enlargements previously in 2000s, in 19th with Sweden, and deeper with Spain, for example. And we all time observed that it all time teamwork of neighboring country. And it's very important to find this, you know, to build this team on our borders. And we had this experience for last 3 years about military support of Ukraine, because all this country all time supported us very good in terms of logistics, in terms of supply. But now we find it in terms of economical decision. If you talk about adoption, it's not. I think it's not so big problem. We can move very fast in Parliament. We have special and procedures and some, you know, unformalized procedures that all time we used while it necessary to promote something more faster. Sometimes we get slower because. Of course, some reforms need time to, you know, to find compromises inside the parliament, inside society, between stakeholders, etc., etc. But on the other hand, we all time were able to find different solutions in some triangles that we started for last 3 years. A triangle commission, our government, and the parliament. And in this triangle, we all time work, and sometimes this is speed of working between these points so fast that it's become circle, and we become fast, very move very fast, and we have decisions, and we have good results for our country, not only for adoption. I want to share with you that some reforms like procurement reform, for example, like judicial reform particularly, already worked, like reform of public administration that I personally respond. We changed for this, even for these 3 years of candidate status, we changed a lot of things. We established new system of salary. We start to prepare our statements to work in EU, because it's, you know, something new for our 180,000 statements. It's enough amount, biggest than in some countries, you know, population in some countries, members of EU, etc. 150,000. Civil servants, yeah. And last but not least, about our ability, about our approach. We know that for such a difficult case like for us, in time of war, in time of this big enlargement, etc., etc., we should be very creative all time. That's why we all time find some new solutions that never had before. For example, we include these 200 MPs to work in negotiation groups. It never happened before, but we know that result will be on next stages, while I don't know, 600-700 of legislative acts should be adopted in Parliament. Our colleagues will not ask what is the list, why is this list, etc. Some of them were in, a lot of them were in Brussels on screenings. Let me be clear, screenings is the best retreat for MPs, because they return different. With different mind and better understand what is going on, what is the reform, why so directive, etc., etc. For example, 9 months ago, we nominated Olga not only like Vice Prime Minister about EU integration, but like Ministry of Justice. Because Ministry of Justice, by our organization, by our management of government, it's key ministry to adopt other acts of all other ministries. And we know that now all other acts will be through point of view from EU integration. And we're able to find such creative solution more and more to be faster, to be responsible, and to promote our results from our side on behalf of Ukrainian population. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So moving to the, speaking of a circle, let's move to the member states as well. So, Minister Saint-Martin, what is the general sentiment in the Council, maybe from your French perspective, but what are also the obstacles? Meaning, if you have one country blocking the process, how do you see that? and also in terms maybe of supporting the population, you know, this kind of aspects.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for organizing this panel with so many relevant people here, and a lot has already been said, to be honest, either from a technical perspective, Mrs. Commissioner, or from a political and public opinion perspective. It's first of all very important to note today how impressive is the determination of the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian state during this process to access to the EU. What I noticed from a French perspective, before talking about any blocking position from someone, it's about making a lot of tasks at the same time. There is a process itself, and a lot of things has already been said, but it's also what is done at the same time. Of course, reforms within the process, but also, for example, as a foreign trade minister, all the jobs that is made nowadays for recovery, for reconstruction with private sectors, Ukrainian private sectors and the rest of European private sector, to try to have a complementary value chain for a future single market. All this is a question of anticipation as well, and it's doing now if we want it to occur and to be relevant and efficient tomorrow. We could also talk about the DCFTA negotiation. What is very impressive is that it's not only a question of one process with some milestone we have to go forward. It's a whole process with other issues, but also other progress that help the very process to access to the EU. And this is what is very interesting, is that all these kind of tasks at the same moment are working very well during wartime. And this is maybe the most respectful and the most impressive, is that, as you said, Minister, hundreds and maybe thousands of people are working nowadays for a process during wartime, and I think we have to be very impressed by this process now, because it's very tough to have this kind of reform at the very moment where the urgence is resisting to the Russian aggression. But let's recall also that we are not starting from scratch. Of course, we had the association agreement between the EU and Ukraine starting in 2014. That could be also a beginning. The fact that Ukraine applied very quickly, it was 3 or 4 days, I think, after the Russian aggression in 2022. And I remember because it was during the French presidency of the EU, and we had the candidature obtained at the very end of the French presidency. It was at the end of June of 2022. So there was this kind of reactivity and willingness that was very important at that moment. And for a few years now, more than 3.5 years, we have seen how Ukraine has taken bold steps and reform very key, very important. Of course, we are talking about the rule of law. You mentioned it. Public administration, you've said it. It's also very important. Anti-corruption, all these kind of key reforms that are necessary during the process, and explain why it takes time during wartime. But once again, let me insist that it's impressive to have this kind of process during wartime, but at the end of the day, it makes sense also, because you can see how converge all these values about freedom, of course, about democracy, about rule of law. As the country is fighting to preserve and to defend this value, they are also promoting them while processing the entry in the EU. So there is also, of course, a kind of common sense during these two momentum, very tough momentum that the Ukrainian state is facing. And as it has been said during the whole day, but maybe it's the most important to repeat all the time, is that either for the resistance and during the war, or for the access to the EU, Ukraine is not alone. And it's a collective and a team job that has to be made. I was talking about making our value chain complementary. A lot of French companies, to talk from my perspective, have no idea of the potential in research, development, innovation that exists in Ukraine. When I bring some French delegation in Ukraine, they are really completely blown by what they see in terms of potential to create together, to create tomorrow some GVs and to be part of the same value chain. And this is exactly what we need to foster during this time. We need to accelerate cooperation, technical cooperation. I could talk a lot about technical cooperation for accession to the EU, because France is sending a technical expert and independent technical expert, which is important. But we could and we should also talk about sending expertise. For example, we have the French healthcare delegation here present in this pavilion. It's a very key example of what we could do tomorrow to create tech and innovation collaboration, which is at least even more important for the future of what we are doing now. And DCFTA, a last word maybe about DCFTA, because it will be the quality of the negotiation and the end of the negotiation will be very important to reveal how we understand each other in a kind of agreement which is not simple, and it's a kind of a test to see if we are able very quickly to move in this kind of agreement that has to protect both interests and has to help Ukraine accelerating, of course, for its own economy today, but also in a foresee and in a future that will make them enter the European Union, which is at the end of the day our final and common objective.
Thank you so much. Minister Rosengren from Sweden. How is this accession process is perceived in the population in Sweden, and also maybe on the civil society or the business side? Do they see the potential of Ukraine accession?
Well, first of all, I have to say, I think it's amazing that we in 2025 are sitting here and talking about EU enlargement. After quite a lot of years with enlargement fatigue, or call it what you want, but it hasn't really been on the top of the agenda in the EU for quite many years. And now we are talking about it realistically, so to say. And sometimes, or some would describe, is there a conflict between different countries advancing? I'd say quite the opposite. What is happening now in Ukraine and with the accession process with Ukraine has really created a momentum, like you said, for the entire enlargement. That goes for Moldova, goes for countries on the Western Balkans. And here I think really Ukraine can show, through this enormously impressive reform progress that you are doing, this is really inspirational for other countries as well. So that would be my first point, that we're sitting here talking about this. I think it's fantastic. And that also goes for your question about sort of the public opinion. I would say that, sometimes we're talking a lot about the benefits for a country joining the EU, but there are so many benefits for the EU in accepting new member states. And perhaps we have already known this historically, but I think now with the new geopolitical situation, it's become more obvious than ever that our continent needs to be more united, needs to be stronger, that the single market, which we, view as one of the real true good aspects and unique selling points, if you will, if you wish, of the EU. This is only getting stronger when we get new member states. And our core business in the EU, our core values is to promote democracy, rule of law, freedom. When this is something that we can really work on achieving in more and more countries and doing progress, it's a win-win for us both. And I think that is something that hopefully the people in the different European countries also see, but I think also we as politicians have an important job in communicating this, because there will always be those, Russia included, that will be very tough on trying to communicate a whole different narrative of all the risks or downsides. I think we really need to be very clear in our communication to our publics. And today, Marta introduced us to new numbers earlier today when it comes to public support. I knew that the public support in Sweden was very high for Ukraine accession. So I usually say it's above 80%, but now we got new numbers that it's actually 91% in Sweden in support of Ukraine accession. I think that's fantastic, and hope, thank you. And that also makes me very confident that it's not just my view, it's the Swedish public view, that we need to do all that we can to support Ukraine in this process. And that being said also, I think historically, looking back, I mean, the Ukrainian fight for joining the EU or for European integration, that did not start now. I mean, we can look back to the protests on the Maidan. We can see how Olga and her colleagues applied for membership just a few days after the full-scale invasion, and then we see all the impressive work that has been done after that on corruption, on the judiciary, on democratic institutions and whatnot. So I'd say moving forward, Sweden will really push for not just maintaining but increasing our support in general for Ukraine, military, civilian in all ways, but also when it comes to the accession process, because it's a tough process. There must have been a lot of coffee in Olga's life during the last couple of years to manage all these different reforms. Sweden is supporting Ukraine in 28 out of 35 so-called negotiation chapters. So I think there's a lot that can be done from us as member states in financial support, but also technological, mock sessions, whatnot. So just I think that's an important role for us as member states. I think also moving forward, the goal is obviously full membership, but it's also good to stress that now we actually have some kind of so-called gradual integration. Marta mentioned roaming, there are other good examples. These can never be a substitute for membership, but they can be something along the way to help us also integrate, to learn more, to gradually enter into our cooperation. So I think we also need to find ways during this process to also make sure that we have closer integration. Is it easy? No. I think there are a lot of, risks or challenges that you need to address. One is obviously that a lot of the EU acquis comes down to local and regional level. So you need to have sort of a real engagement throughout different levels of different political levels in Ukraine. You need an all-of-society approach, of course, especially in the fast pace that Ukraine is now moving forward with. It's, of course, important to see that government, opposition, civil society, everyone has to be involved and communicate in a proper way, of course. And, of course, keeping up the pace in the Rada with the legislative work is quite a challenge, but very important. And I would say, last but not least, the challenges also, of course, within the EU, where we have 26 countries really strongly agreeing that we need to move forward and we need to do it now. And the Swedish point of view was very clear. We need to open all clusters this year, and we need to open the first cluster now. And there cannot be one country setting the pace for this, but we need to make sure that 26 countries are more than one, and we need to move forward now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Minister Tsoyu, I suppose you share the same enthusiasm in Romania.
Well, yes, we share the enthusiasm, and more than that, we have been among the first countries to experience the hopes, the fears, the aspirations of refugees in the immediate days when the conflict began. And we are grateful that we are neighbors, we are grateful that we have been able to do this, because we have learned a lot from you. We have learned a lot from the courage, the perseverance, the resilience, and the absolute clarity on how Ukraine's people see the future of the country. And when I say we learned a lot, I mean not just personally or institutionally, but I think it mattered in our society as well. We recently had elections. I don't know if anyone followed. We recently had elections, and why I'm mentioning this is because I think we have experienced firsthand in those elections in 2024 and in 2025 that in parallel with the war that is going on Ukraine territory, we have a different type of aggression and we have a different type of battle happening all throughout the European Union and the countries that are planning to join the European Union. And that is a fight for the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations and the future direction that each citizen, each society, each country is building towards. And I think this is very serious and very important, and I think we need to be aware of this. I am immensely grateful to every citizen, civil society, every contributor in Romania that has kept and protected the European path we're now on. And I really think it's important that we understand that this is going to be challenged every day. It's challenged at home as well still, in the narratives that are being put forward on social media, and not just that. Even when I was appointed in my first day as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, immediately that day we flew into The Hague. So there was obviously a heated debate whether the Ministry of Foreign Affairs should represent the national interests of Romania, or why is she talking about Ukraine? Why is she talking about the accession of Republic of Moldova? But I think there is no competition and there is no dissonance between these two. It is in the national interest of Romania and it is in the interest of the European Union that we have enlargement, that we have peace. It is absolutely essential, and we have put forward this objective in our new government plan that has recently passed through Parliament, that it is the strategic objective of Romania that the border of the European Union doesn't stop at the border of Romania but goes further. And this is connected obviously with Ukraine, with the Republic of Moldova, with the Western Balkans. And I think it is important that we have seen in this European path, in our economy and in our transition, I would almost dare to use the word that Giorgia Meloni has used on stage when she was speaking about the Italian miracle, in a sense in which we have seen this fast-paced growth in terms of economy, this amazing transition of institutions. Obviously the work is not done. I come from opposition into this government, so I will never say that the work is fully done or that we don't have work to do still. But I think what we have learned in this path is something that we can share and we can support through the process of integration. And now we invest heavily into this, also in very clear logistical terms, like we've invested in the Constanța port for it to be a logistical hub. We are doubling the number of border control points in our bilateral relationship as well. That plan, once finalized, is going to be larger than 1 billion euros in investments. We are building a highway, finishing a highway that creates the necessary connection, and we are prioritizing that investment at this moment. But more especially, I think, the social resilience and the transformation of our societies while keeping our national core values, which is something very important in our region especially, is something that we can partner along the way. The Black Sea, obviously, and this is something very, very important for us to be a point of investment. We try to always consolidate the economic perspective, the logistic perspective with the defense one, and that's why very important for us that we have NATO presence in the Black Sea as well, and in the demining current projects, we are looking forward to expand that. But this being said, I really think Romania is actually, this is not what I think. This is what I know, and this is what we know at every institutional level. Romania is clear on the fact that Ukraine, Republic of Moldova, and the region need to go forward towards joining the European Union. We're going to be clear in our votes, in our conversations in Brussels, in our support towards the public opinion, in our conversation with the business community. I'm here today also with Mihai Jurka. He's our newly nominated special envoy for the reconstruction of Ukraine from the Chancellery of the Prime Minister. President Nicu Jordan has had his first official visits in Ukraine and Moldova, and that is also a clear message of the fact that he is going to be a strong partner towards this, because he understands clearly and has this vision that this is in the interest of Romania, the European Union, the region as such. And there was this book that we started reading on the plane on the way here, written by Ukrainian historian, the Path to Europe. And I think that has always been the case. It's not just a recent conversation or a recent plan, because we have a common home and we have a common responsibility to build it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Minister Budrys from Lithuania has just joined. So what is the feeling? How's this accession process perceived in your country?
You should come and see how it is perceived. It is perceived with huge hype and support, and of course it's everywhere. Ukraine as not only one of our best partners that was actually before the full invasion. We strongly believe in Europe and in European idea. That's why we see Europe as part of it, and of course there is support. That pushes us politicians into the position where we are demanded and we have to deliver. I have to deliver. When I go back, I have to deliver. I have to tell what happened here, how many MOUs and contracts I signed, and what will be after this, and because I feel this pressure. And it's not for the society, but it's for us to set up the good process of the accession and to get there. Because what I promised, and my president promised our society, and this is the goal that we put in front of us, that Ukraine will be a member of EU at the 1st January of 2030. And for some of our people, it looks like, oh, it's too far away. We have to have it earlier than 2030. But even understanding that 2030 is really tight in time, and it will be very intense in the work that we have to do, we have to understand that we have to get together and start working. And it's not only here today with the big support and hype to Ukraine, but that will be tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and even in August when everyone will go on the vacation. No, we have to prepare our steps. That's from European side, that's from European Commission side, that we also are very demanded and each time when we meet, and it's also on Ukrainian side. So there are a lot of homework to be done, and it's not for the given. We know what are the challenges, and of course the main challenge is the war that is ongoing and aggression that is ongoing, and we are not in a position to change it like this. Yeah, we are considering many ways. We know that the accession process will be also part of the solution for the future of Ukraine, and showing Putin that Ukraine is not lost case. Ukraine will be in Europe. The second obstacle is the resources, and we know how much of everything is needed right now to Ukraine, as all these contracts and all these agreements that were signed today are showing. It's from energy, it's from civilian infrastructure, many fields, and also support to the capacities, administrative and the others for Ukraine are very important. And finally, this is the third obstacle that I see, and that makes me very uneasy. That is internal contradictions in European Union that we still have, that makes an obstacle for Ukraine, and that is the position of some of the countries that oppose. And actually it's not the countries, it's one country. And this is the problem, and we have to address it. And I address it from the very fundamentals of Europe. For me, European Union, that's geopolitics, geopolitical project. Security starts from geopolitics, and Ukraine is part of it. And if someone has, and if they have in Hungary different opinion, so let's discuss it from the very depths. What's this different approach then, and what's the future for Europe without Ukraine? And we know that there is no easy answer for them, because we have the strong answer. And we have to also to break this obstacle for the future of all of us. And it's not about Ukraine. If we cannot open the cluster one, what will be with the other processes elsewhere? What will be with the merit-based approach? What will be with the enlargement in Western Balkans? It won't happen. That's what will be. That's why it is important to support Ukraine. And this is what my people, my society and Lithuania expects from me to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for addressing this sensitive question also regarding member states. Minister Foti, you already shared your determination, your enthusiasm. Do you want to add some remarks after you heard about your colleagues from the Council?
I think that this has been an extremely positive occasion, because no one of us had ever assumed a position we hadn't agreed before. Everything was spontaneous, but this is what we tell each other every time we meet, and we say Ukraine must enter the EU. We believe in this, we are working towards this, and we believe we will reach this objective thanks to the involvement of everyone.
Time maybe to take one or two questions from the audience, if there are. Yes, if we can give a microphone. Microphone ready to the lady here.
Wstawaj.
Can you introduce yourself,
Hello.
please?
Yes, sure. My name is Olga Limer. I am Executive Director of Animation Package of Reforms Coalition. Today I'm here with Victoria Melnik, who represents Center of Policy and Legal Reforms. And together with Ukrainian Center of European Policy, we initiated in May an open appeal on behalf of civil society to the European Commission with a request to open the first cluster. And thank you very much, Commissioner Marta Kos, for your reply. We received a letter where you confirmed a merit-based approach to the enlargement process in the context of Ukraine. And dozens of Ukrainian NGOs signed that appeal, and we continue supporting our government. Thank you, Olga Stefanishina, and our parliament. Thank you, Alexander Kornienko, for your work. And we have together a common question: what before opening the first cluster, European Commission and Ukrainian state can do to ensure the efficient enlargement process? And Victoria has to add.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for this perfect discussion. I think thank you for your support. And also I have a question, I think that really important now, especially what is related to the change in some policy with the EU. And thank you, the ministers, that you raised a question about one particular country that blocking us during our negotiation. And I think that in the next enlargement we need to think how to avoid the problem with the blocking of the negotiation by countries, not because of the national interest, but actually about the individual interests. Because we saw also the example of North Macedonia here.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, because you need to leave. So
yeah, I still have some minutes. Thank you, civil society, to follow our accession process so vigorously. Without the civil society, without all the society approach, the accession cannot happen. I will just a bit like to correct you. This one state, the member states Hungary, has not blocked the accession process. We are negotiating like hell. So we are really going, we do the screenings, we negotiate. There is just the decisions in the council are at standstill. So this is the point we have to, where we have to be better. The decision-making process in the European Union is not easy, because European Union is built on the compromise. It's built on the idea that 27 or all the member states will find a solution to a problem. And until now in the history we always have found many different solutions. So I'm sure we will also find for this time, but yeah, I agree. For the future we have to see how to improve our decision-making process, that actually EU will be more effective, and that we will deliver what, as you have said, Kestutis, our citizens are expecting from us. I will just tell you that in Hungary, 64% of the population is supporting the enlargement process.
Thank you, Hungary.
I'm speaking generally. For Ukraine is lower. Meaning, yes, Kestutis, you have said there are some obstacles the member states have, but let's talk about it. There is nothing we cannot solve. And I have hope in the EU, because in the most difficult times, actually more in the difficult times than when it is going well, we have been able to find answers to the most complicated question, and we will do this in the future too. Yesterday, because I have to go to the plane, yesterday at the dinner somebody asked me, when Ukraine will become a member state. And I was saying also what our president has said, that until 2030, and then people were thinking 2030, but then I said, but I have one personal wish, and I will tell you my personal wish. Since my mandate as a Commissioner for Enlargement will end at 1st of December 29, it has to happen before I will stop working as a Commissioner for Enlargement. So, member states, I need your support.
This is duly noted. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think we have to close here. I said in introduction that this accession process is very hybrid. It's a technical discussion, it's a political discussion. There's also a dream for population from Ukraine, but also from Europe, as we could understood and could feel. So we are there to make it happen. Thank you so much.
Here. So if you want to hear anything other than me screaming at you, earphones on. It's an open area, there is no ambient sound per se. So earphones on. If you want to listen to what's happening. Yep, she's en route. Yeah, so we're going to start in a minute. Okay, so I will welcome her to the podium. Hello, Roman Waschuk. Hello, welcome. Have a seat.
I'll leave the stage.
Okay, have a seat. Right here, yes. Okay, I think we are... On est plus ou moins complet. Je pense que... Так, чекайте, зараз тут... Чекайте, якщо і так, давайте... Right. Вас, пане Денисе, тоді ви тут, чекайте, так, міністри один коло одного, будь ласка, так. Comme ça. Who are we missing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, we actually have 10 seats, okay. Хто перший? Міністри говорять перші. Okay. Voilà. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last panel of this day, which is strengthening rule of law through integrity and enforcement efforts. We have here a very distinguished panel, including our two co-host justice ministers, Minister of Justice of Italy, Carlo Nordio, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Justice of Ukraine, Olha Stefanishina. We have the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Monsieur Alain Berset. We have the head of the National Agency on Corruption Prevention of Ukraine, Viktor Pavlushchik. We have the Director General of the International Development Law Organization, Jan Beagle. The Chair of the Supreme Rada Committee on Legal Policy, Denis Maslov. We have the Director of the Eastern Europe and Central Asia Department of the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office, Roz Eels. And we have from the OECD, Nicolas Pinault, Deputy Director dealing with business and integrity issues. So I would encourage all of you to put your headsets on if you want to hear what our distinguished panel will be saying. We will be looking at the framework, we'll be looking at implementation, and we will be looking at follow-up and monitoring of rule of law. But to give us some introductory remarks, I would first invite Minister Carlo Nordio of Italy, and he will share some remarks with us.
Good morning. I'm really glad to be here today and see the participation of many leaders who have not forgotten Ukraine and are fully aware of how crucial it is to keep supporting an assailed country. As my fellow panelists know, Ukraine has already undertaken judicial reforms over the past decade, including the establishment of independent institutions and anti-corruption bodies, which are fundamental EU requirements in the path of the accession. But as we all know, the journey doesn't end there. Once passed, laws must in fact be implemented so that written rules are transformed in concrete actions. Then, and perhaps most importantly, comes monitoring that is ensuring that the law serves its intended purpose. Although this multi-stage process may vary from country to country and from legal system to legal system, it cannot be disregarded because it is essential for guaranteeing and upholding the rule of law that protects and serves us all. While Ukraine has been completing massive efforts in this regard, Italy has not just showed solidarity as a part of the EU, but has also provided concrete support as a G7 member. As many of you know, back in 2022 and 2023, the G7 justice ministers met in Berlin and in Tokyo, respectively to strongly condemn Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. On both occasions, the G7 undertook a continued effort to support Ukrainian judicial authorities, and in Tokyo, the Anti-Corruption Task Force for Ukraine was established, with a focus on corruption eradication in the Ukrainian justice system. We wanted to send a clear message to the Ukrainians. The G7 acknowledged their endeavor and would continue supporting their commitment through transparency and good governance principles that will be vital for preventing misuse of reconstruction funds and attracting future investments. In 2024, the G7 justice ministers met again in Venice under the Italian presidency of the group, along with the EU Commission and the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. The former Ukraine's Minister of Justice, Denis Malyuska, and the Prosecutor General, Andrew Kostin, also attended and actively participated in the talks. By leveraging our prominent role in multilateral diplomacy, our support translated into the adoption of an annex to the final declaration. The G7 Justice Ministers pledge to support anti-corruption efforts for the reconstruction of Ukraine, which was another brick in the G7 nations' commitment to support Ukraine's anti-corruption infrastructure, judicial reforms, and institutional capacity building. The pledge reflected the G7 recognition that effective anti-corruption measures were essential not only for Ukraine's immediate recovery needs, but also for its long-term democratic development and European integration aspirations. Proper judicial training is pivotal for maintaining judicial autonomy and independence because it equips judges with the knowledge, skills and ethical foundations needed to make decisions based solely on law and evidence rather than external pressure. Building upon such assumption, the pledge emphasized the relevance of multi-level training programs for judges, prosecutors, administrative staff and anti-corruption employees. A very successful initiative, I am glad to mention, involves a delegation of 15 Ukrainian judicial officials, including appeal and first instance judges, along with law enforcement representatives who learned from Italian judges their experience with corruption cases and attend specialized lectures on corruption crime proceedings. In other words, they had the opportunity to learn about those valuable tools that help the judiciary to achieve concrete results in their corruption-related investigations. Furthermore, memorandum of cooperation were signed between Italy's School for the Judiciary and the National School of Judges of Ukraine in 2023, and the Prosecutors Training Center of Ukraine in 2024. Both aimed to strengthening institutional capacities and enhancing professional training to preserve the rule of law. Following this path, the third meeting of the G7 Act for Ukraine, for the Ukraine Task Force, was convened in Tokyo in November 6 and 7, 2024. During this gathering, representatives from all participating states presented their concrete initiatives aimed at strengthening Ukraine's judicial system and anti-corruption framework to Ukrainian delegates from the country's principal judicial and administrative anti-corruption institutions. Building upon this proactive approach, Italy has emphasized the critical importance of collaborative training programs for judicial personnel. The meeting also provided an opportunity to recognize the significant achievements of the Ukrainian government in establishing a sophisticated and comprehensive anti-corruption network that comprises highly specialized institutions such as the National Agency on Corruption Prevention, today represented by its head, Mr. Viktor Pavlyushkin. In confirmation of our chosen approach and the enduring nature of our commitments, a fourth Act for Ukraine meeting will take place, which will undoubtedly be the chance to showcase the additional progress achieved during the 6-month period and assess how our initiatives are advancing. Furthermore, I am honored to announce that the promise made upon concluding my visit to Kiev last year is going to be fulfilled today with the signature of the Memorandum of Cooperation in the prison system sector. Based on the document that Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister Stefanushka and I will be signing at the end of this session, our Department of Prison Administration will offer its comprehensive expertise to the Ukrainian counterpart on multiple critical areas by means of working meetings of experts, workshops, and mutual visits of delegations. The ultimate goal of this important document is to enhance the modernization and the digitalization of both penitentiary and probation system, also with a view to reaching European Union standards in criminal sentence execution. To conclude, I am also glad to announce that by virtue of the previously mentioned memorandum, the one signed between the Italian School for the Judiciary and the Prosecutors Training Center of Ukraine, this October, a delegation of Ukrainian prosecutors will be hosted in Italy for a 3-day training program. Allow me to thank you all once more, as your presence here today demonstrates our unwavering commitment to the Ukrainian people, who deserve our continued support and must not be left to face their challenges alone. Thank you.
I would now like to invite Minister Stefanishina to also share some thoughts, if you can. And she is Deputy Prime Minister for Europe, for Euro-Atlantic integration, Minister of Justice, and I would say also Minister of Legal Geography, because she has been drawing many roadmaps recently.
Thank you, Roman, and thank you, Minister. Although I'm a lawyer by education, and I started my professional career in the Justice Ministry, so it just made a circle of 15 years. Then I become a minister. I think the approach and the understanding of the rule of law is very different, and I just shared with Secretary General that everything I know about the rule of law I learned from the Council of Europe, because this has been the major part of my job I was doing as a young graduate from the institute. So I have no other knowledge in my life than what is written in the conventions and what is there. And also I started my professional career in the years when the rule of law became important in this country, when everybody started to talk about that, and the roadmap back in the time for the rule of law was the plan of the Council of Europe, which has evaluated from Ukraine's membership in the Council of Europe. So I think this is a good background. And this is the background shared by dozens and hundreds of people who really have been building this these bases of the understanding what is the rule of law and what is the demand for justice in this country. And this was the fundamental understanding of the people who stood on the Maidan in 2004 in the Orange Revolution, because there should be a fair system, right, for the elections, for the transparency. And this is what people were standing for in 2013 and 14 about the revolution of dignity. It's nothing but the justice and the rules and keeping the promise and trusting to what has been promised and being able to implement it. And that's why, to make it work, the rules exist. And I think this is the start and the introductory remarks I make, so that we all understand that when we are speaking about Ukraine's being a member of European Union and meeting the criteria, is more than just a steps we're taking right now. It's about fundamental things. Whatever is on the roadmap, it's only valid when it's something that has a commitment behind it. Any action we're taking is only valid when there is a trust in our intentions. You know, and when there is a lack of trust, there is a lot of different solutions. You try to ensure the result by compensating it with different things. But now, I think the roadmap, which is hopefully to be enforced by EU member states and the European Commission as part of Ukraine's accession process after the first cluster of accession is open, I think it embraces everything I've just said. And I think its effectiveness could only be proved by the real commitment to its implementation and the commitment to the spirit we put into that. Other than that, without these two elements, this is just the set of actions. Or a piece of shit, in different meanings of this, as some members of Ukrainian civil society said, because they didn't like it. But it might be piece of shit, right? But there is a real commitment behind that, and if there is commitment, is supported by everybody. This is something very real. So we have a document which is a piece of shit, in fact, but then we can ensure that this is about the rule of law. So I think it's a very interesting period of time we're living in right now, when we are forced to evolve from the revolutionary state to a state building sustainable institutions, a trustworthy institutions, a state which is worth of becoming a member of European Union. This is very different to make it work on a backdrop of the full-scale aggression, when on one hand we have to prove that we exist every day, we have to fight for our identity, but then we have to give our identity to 27 other member states. These are very different things to do, but I think if we have this commitment, if we have this cause, the set of actions really matters. And enforcement really matters. And I'm really looking forward for the Commission to say the same, together with 27 member states, and then the other discourse will start, and this will be domestic discourse on how we build on the good and best practices we had over this decade, and build on something more sustainable and more resilient. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister, and I'm sure the market in sheets of paper will now be skyrocketing. You've promoted sheets very well. I must say that in introducing the ministers in the panel, I forgot to tell you who I am. My name is Roman Vashchuk. I'm the business ombudsman of Ukraine, and I'm being self-effacing here. And I think segueing very appropriately, Minister Stefanishina noted how much Ukraine has benefited from the framework role and mentoring of the Council of Europe, and so we pass the word to the Secretary General of the Council, Monsieur Alain Berset.
Thank you so much for these very kind words to Deputy Prime Minister Stefanishina. And let me maybe start underlining that we have the full-scale aggression of Russia on Ukraine still ongoing. And in this situation, Ukrainian institutions work. They are working. That's impressive. And I say this just to underline that, well, even if Ukraine has suffered the heaviest attack of the war also in the last days, also the last night, but even now, recovery cannot wait. And it starts with accountability. It's really important to underline this importance of this discussion exactly right now. And I come to my second point. It is about the agreement to for the establishment of the special tribunal. We had the privilege, the honor to have the visit of the Ukrainian delegation led by President Zelensky in Strasbourg 2 weeks ago. And the president at this occasion said to us that everyone responsible for this war must be held to account. And the first element that we can do right now, and so exactly what we did this night, it was to sign the agreement for the establishment of the special tribunal, because it must be clear that impunity does not have any place in Europe. And we know that without justice, there can be no real recovery. And without justice, there will be not possible to have a just and lasting peace for Ukraine and for Europe. My third point, just you mentioned this also in the bilateral discussion we had before, Deputy Prime Minister, it is about the role of the institutions on the international level. And I want to mention now the European Court of Human Rights. And this court is the only international court adjudicating war-related violations since years. As we speak, it is the case. It was also the case yesterday with, just yesterday, this very important ruling. You know, this case, Ukraine and Netherlands against Russia, and where the court unanimously held Russia accountable for widespread abuses since 2014, including the downing of MH17. And even if it is difficult right now to do this work together, it is important that we continue on this, and thousands of individual cases are still pending, from Crimea to the full-scale invasion. That's the first pillar that we have for accountability. It is working, and we need really to support this and not to weaken this system. The second element is about the register of damage. You know, this very strong innovation that head of states and head of government decided to create in the summit of Reykjavik in 2023 a register of damage. It is working since 2024, and right now, as we speak, 2025, we have more than 40,000 claims submitted to the register with a lot of different categories and with a high quality level work for the just registration of all those elements. Claims span, death, injury, torture, sexual violence, destruction of homes, and much more. And it is important to cover this as large as possible. Also here, there is no recovery without accountability, and accountability must cover all possible fields. And in this regard, the next step will be the creation of the Claims Commission so victims are heard and the reparations follow. I think, and the next point, legal certainty is the backbone of recovery. That's why we are working so closely with Ukraine. And with the institutions, with democratic institutions, supporting courts, supporting anti-corruption bodies, and the goal here is to create as far as possible legal certainty. Legal certainty, to have institutions working, and saying also in this context that recovery must be inclusive. Maybe my last point now. With the work we can do together for accountability, stability, justice, it is really the ground where it is possible to build then stability and a just, lasting peace for Ukraine. It would be not a good idea, to divide the different elements. We have to go all those challenges together. And my final message, I'm not claiming to have all the answers. It's absolutely not with the Council of Europe. But I think we do know that no justice would mean no recovery. It is not possible to have recovery without justice. No institutions destroy trust. It is not possible to have trust without strong institutions. And no law will mean no peace. It is not possible to have peace not based on law, strong institutions, and justice. It is a collective effort. And it is important to be together there. There is no good alternative to the strong collaboration we can have on an international level, not only between the Council of Europe and Ukraine and other organizations, but all together, to take the benefit of those institutions created more than 75 years ago, not created for good weather conditions, That's exactly created to face the most important danger that we can have, the destruction of the institutions, destruction of trust, and a world which would be based on violence and impunity, and not on peaceful relations and accountability. It is our goal that we can achieve together. And thank you very much for the strong collaboration that we have with Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Monsieur le Secrétaire Général. And now I'd like to turn to the head of the National Agency for the Prevention of Corruption, Mr. Viktor Pavlushchik. He helps to create the rules according to which Ukrainian public officials and others act, the framework within which they seek to improve their integrity and to provide the basis for enforcement. So perhaps you'd like to share some thoughts with us about that.
Thank you so much. It's only one small task of a national agency, and I'll try to answer a little bit wider, because setting standards, integrity standards of public officials, it was mentioned on previous panels, this is about 150 civil servants, 150,000 civil servants, but even our Ukrainian register of declaration, asset declarations, we have about 700,000 people in Ukraine who are obliged to submit asset declarations, and it's a complicated system of declaring, wholly transparent, and I think that there is no such examples in the world that's how it works in Ukraine. But also, if we are talking about broader issue of part of NACP on this as a role of implementing a roadmap of rule of law, we can say that it's not only about declarations, it's not only about public officials, it's also about forming anti-corruption policy. It's also about ensuring a robust whistleblower protection. And for example, talking about the last whistleblower protection, last year, Ukraine NSCP had possibility to pay a reward for two first whistleblowers in Ukraine, and one of those rewards was about 350,000 euros as a reward for claiming about corruption. Also, if we're talking about the roadmap of on rule of law and this issue, like all of speakers before, they mentioned about fighting corruption, preventing corruption, and this issue is hard to underestimate the role of fighting corruption in Ukraine. And one of those issues, and only one measure that is mentioned in the roadmap, it's ensuring high level of implementation of anti-corruption strategy and state anti-corruption program. And just for your understanding, that this anti-corruption program consists of 1,146 measures to be done by 121 state agencies and ministries all over Ukraine. That's why if we are talking about roadmap, we need to talk about not only measures mentioned there, but also about measures mentioned in the state corruption program.
If you pardon my interrupting, how do you then set the priorities with so many measures?
We can't set priorities because the first proposal of European Commission was to set 100% of implementation of those measures. Yeah, but of course we have a monitoring system, which is also the only example of monitoring anti-corruption policy all over the world, where we have all these agencies connected to this system, and they can claim. They can set information about the results of implementation of those measures, and also we have possibility of civil society to claim about not proper implementation 24/7. And it's also one of the great examples of cooperation between the state and civil society in this process. Also, I tried to mention some more additional issues that are connected deeply in this process. For example, one of the newly established not measures but spheres of work, and it was this task was given to an ACP. It's anti-corruption mainstreaming, and it means that the issue of fighting corruption and preventing corruption, finding corruption risks and eliminating them will be the part of discussion of all negotiation chapters during negotiation procedure with the European Commission. And here I want to say that cooperation with all our state agencies inside Ukraine and outside of Ukraine, for example, those that we also today mentioned about the Council of Europe, GRECO, group of experts against corruption, it's OECD, and others give us possibility to set those standards you mentioned, set additional benchmarks which are of course become a part of roadmap of rule of law, and those assessments that can be conduct with GRECO, with OECD, they give us possibility to find those big results and those gaps that we can in future take into account and change. And for example, just yesterday I came from Paris. We had adopted with OECD, we had adopted a report on fifth evaluation round of Istanbul Action Plan, and I am pleased to say that among 9 spheres, 3 spheres we've got result more than 90%, and it's forming anti-corruption policy, it's anti-corruption institutions, and it's whistleblower protection, and I think it's a good result. And mentioning the result of last year review of Ukrainian recommendations evaluations according to the Greco fifth evaluation plan, I want to remember two words that was mentioned in this report. It's significant progress. And every such report, every such document highlights that Ukraine had achieved significant progress in fighting against corruption, preventing corruption, even in the state of war. And it's mentioned in Greco report and mentioned in OECD review on integrity and anti-corruption, and I think this is a good result for people of Ukraine, because now we are in a state of war with our aggressor and with war against corruption. And as I always try to remind, more than 80% of people in Ukraine think that corruption is one of the main problems in Ukraine after the war. But showing those results of OECD, of Greco and all other partners, huge voices that can share our results, we can say that this level of perception of people in Ukraine is more about the will to live in country without corruption. Because, for example, the same annual research that is conducted by independent agency in Ukraine, private agency, shows that the amount of people who answers that they faced corruption from year to year becomes lower, lower and lower. For example, this year results showed that it's 18.6% of people. Last year it was 21%, and for example, year 2017, it was 70% of people, more than 70% of people said that they face corruption. That's why we have good results in this sphere.
Thank you, and you've already come to the question of monitoring and sort of how real is it, and measuring it longitudinally, which is what you do, which is in fact a very admirable series of studies which I would commend to the audience to read the annual surveys. The International Development Law Organization has made a career of helping countries go from that proverbial sheet of paper to actual implementation. So I'm wondering, from the IDLO point of view, how do you see the relationship between framework, implementation, and then checking to see if it's all real?
Thank you very much, and good evening. Yes, for us, we're really looking at finding targeted, practical solutions to help our partners face whatever problems they face. And we have been in Ukraine since 2015. We have been supporting Ukraine's reform process, particularly in the areas of rule of law, anti-corruption, judicial independence, and good governance. And then more recently, we have been working specifically with the Office of the Prosecutor General, helping them to build capacities in many areas, including documenting alleged violations of international humanitarian law and international criminal law, and also supporting a number of accountability mechanisms, including the ACA. We've also been more recently supporting Ukraine's state agency for reconstruction and infrastructure development in supporting them to build capacity to review the huge number of reconstruction proposals, as well as looking at legislation to improve transparency and oversight of reconstruction efforts. And out of this work that we've been doing, I was just going to share three kind of learnings that we have had so far. First of all, I think that our experience has really shown us that recovery is not just rebuilding what has been damaged or lost. It's really about laying the foundations of a stronger, more inclusive, more accessible system of justice in line with international norms and standards. And of course, these rule of law commitments are essential for EU accession, but even more broadly for long-term democratic development, as Minister Nordio said. Secondly, we have had before the war and since a special focus on anti-corruption. We think that this is absolutely essential. We must strengthen the administrative justice system and particularly ensure independence of the judiciary, increase transparency in public administration. And all of this is important because it increases public trust. And I think others have mentioned the word trust. We think it's extremely important, obviously, because it does improve the climate for business and investment, which is key, but also it contributes to social cohesion and resilience. And I think that Madame Zelensky said this morning how important the focus on mental health is, and this relates a lot to trust in a society. And the third one that we have seen is that it's really important to localize this work, that we need to focus our support on regional administrations and city councils. We need to strengthen capacity in all levels, but particularly in areas like public procurement. And we need to build skills not only in governments, but we need to build them in business and in civil society. So it's important to design and implement recovery and reconstruction processes that work not only in Kyiv, but also in the rest of the country. So finally, I just say that from our experience, we believe it's essential to maintain the international cooperation that is enabling the enhancement of capacities at all levels in the justice chain. We absolutely have to protect the rule of law, as Secretary General Berset said. Without justice, there is no recovery. So we believe that the rule of law is absolutely the basis of a sustainable recovery and a democratic future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Director General. Taking that whole broader approach and applying it in the formal world, legislative world of Ukrainian law is the task, among others, of the legal committee of the Supreme Rada. So I'm wondering if, Mr. Maslov, you could share with us how you try and shape the legal framework, but also how you try to make sure that the laws you write can also easily or rationally be implemented. Is there some sort of modeling? Is there some sort of what kind of filters do you apply when you filter through the thousands of great ideas that people are throwing at you?
Thank you very much. First of all, I will switch to Ukrainian language with your permission.
First of all, I would like to thank everybody who is staying here this evening, who is interested in promoting rule of law in Ukraine. I can see so many people here, and I'm happy about this. As for the priorities, that's easy. As in the army, we have the strategic level, the tactical level, and operative level. The strategic level is quite easy. How do we choose the draft laws to promote? First of all, they all should be related to obstacles to the access to justice. Our constitution spells out that there should be no limitations in terms of access to justice. Even those who face the heaviest charges in respect of the Ukrainian citizens have to be ensured the access to the justice. Second level, the tactical level. This is, in the first place, European integration, the integration laws and our EU accession obligations and arrangements with the international financial institutions. These are the laws related to implementations of these obligations. This also includes the systemic laws that regulate the operation of the Ministry of Justice and the judicial system in general. And the operative level, we should act swiftly because we are in the conditions of war. So we have to choose the draft laws which are also related to the actions of our enemy. For instance, the we had to adapt our laws, because when the enemy came too close to our municipalities and we had to redistribute the cases quickly, or when some of the cases were just destroyed by the shelling, we had to adjust our legislation accordingly. And this means facing all the daily challenges, and this also includes the monitoring of the laws implementation. We have to check how the laws which we have adopted, and in particular the EU integration laws and the provisions advised to us by our partners from the Council of Europe and the European Commission, how are they implemented in practice. Sometimes one might have good intentions, but in practice it doesn't work. That's why we try to do our best and act quickly and coordinate our action with the international partners and the presidential office. That's how our operative level works. A lot is being discussed about corruption. Surely our system has some negative aspects, as it is the situation in many other countries. However, we should turn to statistics. So we have the economic jurisdiction, which covers the courts with deal with commercial disputes during the period from 2022 to 2024. 500,000 claims have been considered by the economic courts, and 20% of all the decisions were referred to the appellation courts, and only 3.5% of judgments were cancelled or rejected. This means that there were mistakes only in 3.5% of cases. In general, only 8% of cases are appealed against. So you can see that there is trust in the judicial system. And you should take into account that the judicial expenses are not too high in Ukraine. As for the period of case consideration, we should have 7,500 judges in Ukraine, but currently we have about 2,000 vacancies. That means that 1/3 of judges is missing, and the rest of judges are overloaded with work, but still they are able to consider all the cases and ensure good quality. This is due to the fact that the judges and the assistants are doing really the best. Their best. And another thing, we have performed the digitalization of the judicial system. Back in the COVID times, we saw that we need to introduce some remote litigation procedures, and then the war broke out. And without that, without focus on digitalization and enforcement procedures, we wouldn't be able to succeed. And this is about the system sustainability. I understand that I don't have much time to speak, but because I can go to lenses speaking about this, or you, or Aperol. Well, I'm powerless here. I'm a former judge, and I know how it feels to work every day, and I know how a document enters into the judicial system and how it goes through all the instances. And just the last number, while 1/3 of judges are missing, the term of case consideration in the first reason, and up to the consideration at the Supreme Court in 2025 was only 9 months from the first instance up to the decision by the Supreme Court. I know the statistics of other countries, even those countries where the security situation is all fine, they have much longer period, and I can see some people smiling. In conclusion, I'd like to say that all our changes, all our reforms have one important aspect. Yes, EU integration, yes, digitalization, but this is nothing because it is the reputation that counts. This is the key word, the reputation of judges, the reputation of courts. This is the reputation of a country, and this is what we are working on. And then everything will go just fine. Thank you.
Ukraine has a, I would say, extremely continental version of a legal system. But what, from a British, more common law point of view, are the priorities? What is it that you see or would like to see in Ukraine in terms of framework, implementation, and then making sure it actually happens?
Thank you, and thank you for this important panel, and would absolutely reiterate comments from the other panelists that we don't see recovery without reform, without rule of law, without justice, responding to the will of the people. And one thing I'd really kind of note is how reform in Ukraine is homegrown. The momentum is from its people, and partnerships on reform with civil society, with media, with business are going to be absolutely crucial in building that momentum and sustaining that momentum and good implementation. Look, from a UK perspective, we absolutely note the progress that Ukraine has made before the war and has made throughout wartime, and that's absolutely extraordinary in some ways, that throughout a wartime period Ukraine is continuing to build on success. Of course there's more to do, and as we look forward, I think we'd like to see further progress in key areas, including the independent institutions tackling corruption, demonstrating to its public that nobody is above the law, and really providing business with the confidence to invest. And of course, as we know, private sector financing of Ukraine's recovery is going to be absolutely key, so that will be important. Secondly, modern, well-staffed justice systems that serve all, providing legal certainty, providing a service to women, children, businesses, I think will be a really important factor. And then finally, I'll come back to this kind of accountability and inclusiveness. So, really demonstrating to the public, to businesses, to civil society, that there can be trust in institutions. And again, I echo kind of the comments of other donors, of other panelists, and I think that for us will be absolutely key. The UK, alongside other donors, is here to kind of stand with Ukraine in that. My Deputy Prime Minister announced today 10.5 million UK pounds for a new governance reform programme that will support rule of law, justice and anti-corruption. We're also really keen to leverage the expertise that we have in the UK to support Ukraine. So, for example, coordinating between our Ministries of Justice, utilising UK legal expertise on jury trials and commercial justice. We are hoping to launch a UK-Ukraine legal bridge later on this year that will strengthen ties between our legal sectors and help boost investor confidence. And further, colleagues who are working in our Department for Business, working with government of Ukraine officials on securing value for money and transparency in procurement. So really a kind of a full spectrum approach from donors, from the international community, from the government of Ukraine, and from the people of Ukraine as well. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one other organization and set of rules that Ukraine is trying to integrate itself into, and that is the OECD and its anti-bribery convention. Nicolas Pinault, what is it that Ukraine has been doing, needs to do, and what is the role also of collective actions in helping Ukraine achieve its goals?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I try not to be too long because I really stand between the audience and the Aperol, so try to be quite brief. Let me maybe go back to what the OECD is doing. The OECD, this is essentially 4 elements. The first thing is the OECD, this is a sort of a knowledge platform. And you know very well the reports of the OECD, and Victor mentioned that he's back from Paris after 2 days, working with the OECD teams on the 5th round of evaluation of Ukraine. And in fact, we've been working with Ukraine for 2 decades, since 2003, as part of the Istanbul Action Plan, in the context of the Anti-Corruption Network of Eastern Europe and Central Asia. And so for 2 decades, we've been reviewing, analyzing, assessing the anti-corruption framework of Ukraine. And we've been working very closely with the Ukrainian authorities in that context. And we've seen a lot of progress. And we've seen progress really intensifying after 2014, after the Revolution of Dignity. So I want also to use this opportunity to really praise the Ukrainian authorities for all the progress that they've made and that are really making these days as we speak. But the OECD, this is also, you said yesterday in another panel, rule-making organization. We are a standard setter, just like the Council of Europe. And we have a very powerful instrument, which is indeed the Anti-Bribery Convention of the OECD. This is an instrument which is aimed at combating the bribery of public officials, foreign public officials, in international commercial transactions. Foreign bribery is a very complex offense. It has a transnational element. And when a country decides to adhere to the OECD Anti-Bribery Convention, it has a lot of homework to do to actually comply with the convention, to align its legislative framework with the convention, but also to really put in place all the building blocks for effective law enforcement. So this is really a journey. This is a long process, and my Ukrainian colleagues are right now in this process. It covers many different dimensions: liability of legal persons, prosecutorial independence, non-tax, non-deductibility, tax deductibility of bribes, international cooperation. So many different aspects. And really, when a country starts the journey, it has a transformational impact on its anti-corruption framework. And the good news is that Ukraine has formally decided indeed to apply for adherence to the OECD Anti-Bribery Convention. And of course, we will work with you. We are already working with you very closely. Ukraine was a participant in the working group, the OECD working group on bribery, which is the custodian of this instrument for 2 years. They've done already a lot of reforms, in particular 2 laws. One that establishes the autonomous criminal liability of legal persons, of corporations, in fact. And the second law, which was adopted in December 2024, is about non-tax deductibility of bribe. So these are 2 major steps forward. Of course, this is only the start of a process. There is a lot of homework that remains to be done. But this journey is really a very strong signal. Of course, this is a good thing for Ukraine because of this transformational impact. But beyond that, this is a very strong signal sent to donors, to private investors. Let's remember, the cost of reconstruction of Ukraine will be $500 billion. So public finance will not deliver this reconstruction. So you need to have the private sector chipping in. And for that, you need to have a clean business environment. And adhering to the OECD Convention will be a very strong signal sent to private investors. And this is also another strong signal in the context of the EU accession, because actually the OECD Convention is part of the rule of law roadmap for the EU accession. So also a very strong signal to the EU. Once Ukraine adheres to the convention, Ukraine will not be off the hook, because the OECD, this is also a method. And this method, this is a peer review mechanism, just like in the Greco. It's a very stringent mechanism where all the members, so the 46 members, actually 45 right now because Russia is a member but is suspended from the group. So all the members, they are assessing each other. They are holding each other to account in terms of both the compliance with the convention in legal terms, but also in terms of implementation, so really the enforcement. And so Ukraine will be in this process of monitoring, of peer review, very strong, rigorous, stringent. You will have all the members breathing on your neck, and it will be. It's not just a tick-the-box compliance exercise. It's really a driver of significant reform. You were talking about collective action. This is also an aspect where we're also working very closely with Ukraine, with the different stakeholders. We're working with you, Mr. Ombudsman, in the context of the Business Ombudsman Council. So the OECD is also an honest broker in this context. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes moderators have dreams. One of my dreams was we'll have a panel, we'll have 3 snappy questions and go through them quickly. That dream didn't work out. But if you have a dream team panel, like the one we've had, the speakers themselves answered all 3 of my questions in each one of their interventions. So I'd like to, on your behalf, and I think you can with applause too, thank them for their contributions on the work being done in Ukraine. And now we will move to the signing of the bilateral Italian-Ukrainian Memorandum of Understanding on penitentiary reform, which is important, though hopefully none of you will be personally affected.